Hi, everybody. Welcome back to round 7 of the Bremen Regional Championship 2022. And I am once again joined by the wonderful and magnificent Ben Kiriakou. How are you going?
Magnificent, in fact. That's
Excellent.
something definitely we like to use to describe each other. I think the feeling is absolutely mutual, and we are getting towards the end of this tournament. We have this round to go. This is our round 7 match. We've only got one more round, an 8-round Swiss to go before we will find out which of these players will be making it into the top cut. The top 8 cut going into tomorrow. There are 3 players at the moment that are 6-0. So there could be a little bit of a situation here where we maybe get all players that are X and 1, but maybe we get that glorious 8-0 undefeated record
It could happen.
going into the last round.
Yeah. And we've got a couple of players who are X and 1 at the moment, so 5 and 1. So they definitely need the win and a following win to be able to guarantee that top cut place. And we've got for you Antonio Marco Rodrigo and Giovanni Piscitelli. And they are no strangers to VGC either. So on our left here is Antonio himself. He's got top 4 at a MSS Madrid mid-season showdown. So one of the events that happened that were sanctioned pre-COVID, which hasn't been restarted just yet, but potentially for next season. So an excellent finish there from him, especially in a city that has a lot of really good players.
Yeah, Spain is well known for both producing very good VGC players, but also having a really active circuit and a lot of players that play at that top level. Speaking of countries that play at a top level, we couldn't mention one without mentioning Italy as well. And we see Giovanni there on your screen at the moment. 2021 through 2019 achievements, the Washington Open top 8 kicking it off with Oceania International's top 32 making the trip all the way around the world to play VGC. And of course, a couple of online events here as well in the X9 Championship. As well as the Battle Dome event as well, making it to top spots in both of those fields.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I faced him once in a French regional like in 2019, and I got destroyed. Like he's a really strong player, is Giovanni. So um, do remember we do have the poll down in the chat. Who do you think is going to win? Exclamation mark genius or X Hull as to who you think will take this title and continue their X1 journey into needing one more win to guarantee that top cut. There's a load of strong players at the moment, so
Mm.
I'm not surprised that these players are like feeling really under the thumb of like stress at the
Yeah,
moment.
definitely. It's really uh, when you get to X1 at these top 8 regional finishes, or trying to get to the top 8 regional finish, I, every match counts so much. And when you're playing at X1, especially several rounds in a row, it's so stressful because your tournament life is on the line. You lose another game, unless it's in the last round of the Swiss tournaments in round 8, which isn't here yet. You always run that risk of not quite making it. You probably make it into the top 16 if you finish X2, but that's probably not where these players want to be living.
I'm not sure if that's the case. Yeah. So on Giovanni on the right, we have a rather standard Zashin Kyoga, Zapdos, Gorilla Boom, Instant Organ style. But on the left, which I really want to make the focus on Antonio's end, there is a Sneasel, not even a Weavile, a Sneasel. So I don't know if he's forgotten to evolve it or something, but Sneasel does have that inner focus ability that Weavile does not. So there is definitely a niche there with like a really decent speed stat too, with a Moongus, Regieleki, Kyoga, Yveltal, and a Whimsicott.
Indeed, and you know that Sneasel is going to be something that Giovanni has to be watching out for because it does do quite well into a lot of Pokemon that Giovanni's seen, that Rillaboom, the Zapdos especially. And it's kind of like at a speed tier where it's a Weavile, but a bit better because you can't hit it with Fake Out. You can't intimidate it, you can't stop it from doing what it wants to do. So I'm looking forward to maybe seeing it in this game. And here it is with Grace with it turn 1, hitting the field alongside that Yveltal for Antonio. Of course, Giovanni leading off with that oh-so-tried and tested lead, Grimmsnarl and Kyogre.
I do wonder if this is maybe like a weakness policy Veltal or something with like as the side ice shard to maybe
Yeah.
activate there. That could be really cool here. And then, because Yveltal has such great attack and special attack, you can make use of both of those. And with a weakness policy boost giving attack and special attack, if you've got Foul Play, if you've got Oblivion Wing, you can go both ends of the spectrum too. So there's a lot that Antonio can pull off here. And seeing as well that you've got a Kyogre on the team, you may not even have the Fire move. So we'll have to see how this turn ends up playing out, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of Dynamaxes here.
Starting off with at least one Dynamax this turn. I believe that's on Antonio's side of the field, maybe? You know what, I didn't catch the way that these trainers had dressed their in-game characters, but does seem to be corrected. It is Antonio going for the Dynamax with that Yveltal. So looking like, based on the HP stats that we can see, quite a bulky Yveltal. You know, it's got a little bit of investment. And there it is, the side Ice Shard activating that weakness policy. Oh my god, this Yveltal is about to go strong, and that's a good thing because Reflect is coming onto the field for that Grimmsnarl, diminishing the power of that Yveltal. I think weakness policy is maybe a little bit stronger overall than that Reflect.
Yes, I think so, but it is enough if this is a physical Max Darkness that has come out here. So we're still yet to see what the investment is or what the move is of. It looks like an Origin Pulse miss there on the Yveltal. Probably wouldn't have done too much damage, but Sneasel is going to go straight down now thanks to that. So no Focus Sash, interestingly, on that Sneasel either. So possibly on that Whimsicott in the back. But Antonio gets his Regieleki in here. And if anything, if I'm Antonio, I'm not too mad about that Sneasel going down because now you've got so much offense going into the next turn.
You definitely have. And yeah, it's quite interesting having Sneasel and Yveltal in the lead situation here for when you're facing down a Grimmsnarl, because both carrying the Dark typing make them immune to Prankster boosted priority moves. And so Grimmsnarl can go for the screens, but if it has something like a Trick Iron Ball that we've seen before, or Scary Face, or Thunder Wave, or some form of speed control, those Pokemon are now immune. And now that Regieleki's on the field, there's something for that Grimmsnarl to do its shenanigans too. We could see it just going for the light screen, completing that power control on Giovanni's side of the field, but you know, you've got to do something a bit active when you're sitting in front of both an Yveltal and a Regieleki, I think.
Definitely agreed, but we're going to see a Dynamax here on Giovanni's end. That's either a really weak Kyogre's Dynamax, or, yes, it is the G-Max Grimmsnarl coming out, which I really love. So there's probably that Fairy-type Spirit Break on there, which he's able to go for that Max Starfall. I wonder if there's even like a Max Darkness, which would then turn into the G-Max Snooze here. But Regieleki goes for the Protect, doesn't want to take too much damage this turn. Airstream comes out from Yveltal into that Grimmsnarl, doing a huge chunk of damage, just living. So Grimmsnarl is going to do something.
Oh my god. That Max Airstream, likely off Oblivion Wing and not affected by the Reflect on the field currently. Gonna target it down, but that Gigantamax was so clutch here. Origin Pulse coming out though onto the Yveltal, doing pretty good damage in the Max Starfall.
Ooh.
Easily enough to pick up the knockout. With a critical hit, don't think that really mattered too much. Maybe it did. We will never know. But I think one of the things that people underestimate largely in this sort of format is that Grimmsnarl has pretty good offensive capabilities. We don't use them that often because the Prankster shenanigans are so good, but it definitely can do some damage.
Absolutely, and the damage it just did. So, and getting rid of like huge boosted threat like Yveltal, which had like +2 speed, like a +1 speed and like +2 attack, +2 special attack. It was doing so much work, but thanks to that Grimmsnarl, Giovanni is probably looking a little bit safer here and probably breathe a sigh of relief. However, Regieleki is still looking pretty good with an Electro Web here. As long as it hits, it just clears the field at the moment, and probably doesn't need to either because Kyogre can follow it up with another spread move. So Regieleki does get that double KO and takes Kyogre and Grimmsnarl down, so Giovanni is forced to reveal his last two Pokemon to match up against Antonio's last two Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's a 4-2, and when you talk about a 4-2 lead in these sort of scenarios, you're kind of thinking, oh, 4-2, yeah, that's really far ahead, and then you just click one button, and it's 2-2, because of the amount of damage that you've taken on this side of the field. Both players have now used their Dynamax, of course, and the last two Pokemon will be absolutely crucial, because if it's the Zapdos in the back, as well as the Zacian, turns out it's not, but if it was, there'd be no Fake Out, and you'd be definitely fearing something like just an Electro Web water spout. As it stands, with the Rillaboom coming in, Giovanni has both access to Fake Out, but more importantly, Grassy Glide, and that's going to really do a lot of work here.
It really is. I think Giovanni must be feeling pretty good now he's brought that Rillaboom in. Incin is probably not going to want to come in here. Zapdos was probably okay, but still gets hit really hard by both Pokemon, but Rillaboom is the perfect Pokemon to bring at the end. So, as you say, Ben, he's got a lot of options with the Rillaboom now, and nothing can Dynamax anymore, so Fake Out is pretty safe to either target. I guess the question is, does Regieleki have maybe a move that hits Rillaboom a bit harder, like a normal type move, but we just see the Glide, straight to the Kyogre, wiping it out in one shot.
Yeah, why mess around with a Fake Out when a Grassy Glide will do? Yeah, Pokemon don't flinch anymore, they just get knocked out. So yeah, I mean, Thunderbolt not doing enough to knock out the Zacian. That's pretty normal, but the Sacred Sword from the Zacian was indeed enough to knock out that Regieleki and take game one.
It was in like 3 or 4 turns. Very quickly done by Giovanni. So really interesting to see. Like, we have so much offense going on every single turn. Like, as soon as Sneasel had done its job, it was down. Regieleki comes in, does this huge amount of damage with its Life Orb, and it just came down to what these players brought to the match that really secured it for either player. So that Rillaboom was really key. So I wonder if Antonio is maybe going to switch things up a little bit, or maybe he knows his calcs and maybe without that critical hit from the Max Starfall, maybe his Yveltal lives. But then again, Grassy Glide in the back with the Rillaboom could probably pick it up at the end. So it's pretty close, and I wouldn't be surprised if both players maybe go for the same 4, but maybe switch things up a bit.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a conversation about how you knock out and go from a 4-2 down scenario to a 2-2 scenario, because you can always go for that Electro Web and knock out both targets. But what if you didn't that turn? What if maybe you protected one of your Pokemon? Let's say protect the Regieleki, knock out one Pokemon with an Ice Beam, don't take too much damage to Kyogre, and then only the Rillaboom comes in at a time, and maybe there's an opportunity there to switch around and do something with protects and moves on the Regieleki to get a slightly better position. But even so, with those 2 Pokemon in the back, it was really uphill.
It was. And we can't forget as well that Giovanni missed his Origin Pulse as well on the Yveltal. So if he'd hit that, there wouldn't have needed to be a critical hit from the Grimmsnarl per se. So even though that offense was really piled on, it still wasn't getting the right KO. And I think that Kyogre hanging on really crucially was key too. So I do wonder if it was a physical dark move that came off there rather than a special one.
Yeah.
But that would make sense with the Reflect Up. But maybe if you target the Grimmsnarl that turn instead, that might even just go straight down to, like, say, the +2 Airstream, going off the lower special defense of the 2 Pokemon. But even though we see the Giovanni going for his tried and true Grimmsnarl Kyogre lead, Antonio switches it up.
Yeah, and this I think is an easier lead to understand. I think from a viewer's perspective, in as much that Antonio lost using that combination with Sneasel and Yveltal, maybe decided to overextend and show off that weakness policy early doors, maybe trying to make Giovanni fear it and do something else in game 2. But as it stands, Antonio getting the lead with that Regieleki on the field and able to put on a massive amount of pressure. Yeah, even the screens may not be enough to save this Kyogre from a big max move from this Regieleki that's just hit the field, maybe unless it goes max itself.
Yeah, and we've seen Ice Shard weakness policy Yveltal, so I wouldn't be surprised to see even more crazy stuff come out from this turn too. Maybe it's even mixed Regieleki. We've seen Thunderbolt, Electro Web. Maybe there's a Wild Charge in there too, so you can hit a Kyogre even harder. That could be something that would be quite cool. But it does look like the Kyogre is going for the Dynamax here. And we've seen a little bit of trick shenanigans from Grimmsnarls over the last few hours here. So if that's a trick into Regieleki here with maybe an Iron Ball, that could be a massive turn for Giovanni.
Could certainly be. We see the Helping Hand come out from that Whimsicott light screen, potentially, depending on the move that's been locked in, would be neutering that. And we see Looks like the light screen was in play, as that does less than 50% health to the Kyogre. And the Kyogre gets to respond, and that's probably going to be a big Max Geyser into the Regieleki. It's exactly what we're seeing here. The Max Geyser coming out, hitting into the Regieleki is enough to pick up the KO. But one of my favorite tactics, using Kyogre to beat Regieleki.
Yes, exactly. It's even though Regieleki with its really good transistor ability is just still no match for a little bit of damage mitigation plus Kyogre. So, as we've seen, Kyogre has been very successful over the entire stream so far. I think it's been mostly Kyogre the teams that have been coming on top, or if it's been the Kyogre mirror, it just goes to show that the best players are bringing Kyogre and being very successful with it. So now, back to the game, if we're thinking about what Antonio needs to do here. Now he's lost his Dynamax. Yeah, maybe Yveltal is the player here, because if you've got Whimsicott with Moonblast, that's maybe another way that you can activate your own weakness policy. So, and if you've got, say, that Foul Play, that might be, I don't know, or maybe a different physical dark move, I suppose, because obviously Foul Play bases it off Kyogre's attack. Maybe that's a way that you can kind of clinch this back and deal with this Kyogre that is going to be taking a lot of KOs.
And the way that Antonio decided to deal with that is to bring the Amoonguss in this game. Really key that he's made that switch up, and that's going to take the Max Lightning as it stands really quite well, dealing less than 50% damage with a critical hit. Actually, that's quite important to note there. We get a Spirit Break following up from that Grimmsnarl into the Amoonguss, taking it below half health, and I think really it seems like Antonio is playing a little bit of the waiting game, and even more of a waiting game, because that poison is now on the field. That Grimmsnarl is eventually going to get knocked out by the effect spore.
The effect spore, awesome. So, like, you don't even need to click spore to potentially put something to sleep. Amoonguss could just do it, like, just off its effect spore, which is amazing. I think of something I've kind of realized, I think, based on how well Kyogre took that Max Lightning, is it's probably Assault Vest on Giovanni's end. Especially now we've seen the Max Lightning, it's probably a clue here, which you'd normally see on more of a Life Orb variant, or if you've got room for it on an Assault Vest set. So we see the Tailwind on Whimsicott's end, boosting the speed, but it's not going to boost Amoonguss too much because it's already very slow. But Amoonguss takes the Hailstorm through the Protect and does still live even through some more Hail Chip that will occur at the end of this turn.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a good play from Antonio to try and mitigate damage onto the Amoonguss, and have it hanging around the next turn. Tailwind, good time to use it. Means that the Kyogre, when it goes back to its normal form, is going to be able to be damaged in the normal way by Yveltal in the back for Antonio. And definitely all good things, but I feel like now that the Amoonguss is still on the field, you kind of wanted the Whimsicott to go down, really, right? You wanted that momentum. You wanted to bring that Yveltal in at the start of Tailwind, where it's going to be most effective. Now it's a bit awkward, right? Because you've got to be able to try and switch it in at some point where it's going to do something. You're worried about that Spirit Break that comes out from the Grimmsnarl, and also some sort of Ice Beam or Thunder coming out from the Kyogre. And all of those sort of combinations of things, even with the weakness policy activated and the follow-up Oblivion Wings, is still going to be difficult for this Yveltal to take.
It is. So Antonio does make a big risk and switches his Yveltal in on the incoming Ice Beam. It does activate the Yveltal's weakness policy, so it is looking pretty strong once again. But Grimmsnarl follows up with the Spirit Break, and it's not into the Yveltal slot, so Antonio just about gets away with it here. And he's able to position his Amoonguss next to the Yveltal, which may be able to redirect away any attacks that could further weaken its health. Now, obviously, Kyogre has that spread move that we saw last time in that Origin Pulse, but I think if Yveltal is able to deal with that, and Amoonguss can somehow hold around a little bit longer, it can further direct attacks away from the Zacian that is likely lurking in the back, and maybe Yveltal can cling out something here.
Unfortunately, though, that Amoonguss is still on 30 hit points because it does have that effect spore, not the Regenerator. And while, Grimmsnarl's taken nearly half damage from the combination of Poison and Hailstorm, pretty good damage. Yeah, it's nice to have. It's definitely, you prefer the extra health to be sitting on the Amoonguss, so it can redirect more of these attacks. We see Reflect coming up here from the Grimmsnarl. We see a Rage Powder from the Amoonguss, and Oblivion Wing going into that Kyogre. Boosted to 2+ stages of attack and special attack. It is going to be doing quite a bit of damage, and it is going to be restoring health as well. So, somewhat nice position. In fact, if we look at the Pokemon that were brought in the last game, only Zacian really has the tools to stop this Yveltal.
It does. And now we can see from the Hail chip that Amoonguss still does have another turn that it can take Hail before it goes down. And then Hail will then be gone the following turn. So the Hail isn't going to chip it down. Giovanni does need to target the Amoonguss with something to be able to deal with it. But he still does have 2 Pokemon in the pack. So it is a huge ask for Yveltal to pull this out. But as you said before, Ben, it's a great option at the moment because there's Grimmsnarl everywhere and it's just not affected by practice moves or any of that speed control that Grimmsnarl can offer. So, but Rillaboom is the switch in here, and being a grass type, it can ignore the Rage Powders and the Spores that Amoonguss can provide, and because Antonio's used up his Dynamax, Yveltal can just get faked out here.
Yeah, and the problem is you want to be able to knock out the Rillaboom, but you can't do that while also protecting the Amoonguss from Grassy Glide and also stopping the Spirit Break coming out from the Grimmsnarl. So really tough position for Antonio here. We see the double protect coming out, the Spirit Break and the Fake Out from the Grimmsnarl and the Rillaboom respectively. That Hail is ticking the last time now onto the field, and so it will be, all these Pokemon will be surviving, will be taking a little bit of grassy terrain recovery, except for the Yveltal, and will be going into these final turns as Tailwind does peter out.
Yep, so with a likely Zacian in the back, it is able to come in eventually and just hit the Yveltal down. So it is very weak at the moment, and so is Amoonguss. And if Giovanni's able to maybe double into just the Amoonguss this time, now it hasn't even protected, he can get rid of that and safely bring in his Zacian, which is likely not going to go down to a +2 Sucker Punch either. So that's probably his win condition at the moment. But Rillaboom actually goes for the Protect this time.
Nice play there. Safe Rage Powder, of course, if the Oblivion Wing does indeed go into the Rillaboom. As we see there, yep, we have the confirmation there that the Spirit Break is going to be going into the Amoonguss, knocking it out. Nice end game position, I think, for Giovanni, because now there's no support for that Yveltal. Now there's no way for the Yveltal to stop the Zacian from getting a clean knockout onto this Yveltal. Assuming it has Play Rough, of course, access to, and in the meantime, of course, we have the threat of Spirit Break constantly on the field for that Grimmsnarl, even though it is nearly knocked out from that poison.
Yeah, I think at the moment, Antonio has to hope that the Oblivion Wing, goes into the Rillaboom, and he heals up loads of damage now from like a max health Rillaboom, and that then maybe is an Incineroar in the back instead of a Zacian. Because like even Zapdos is going to be taking the hits fairly well, and if it's max speed, will outspeed this Yveltal as well. Spirit Break does go into the Yveltal. The weak spot is already activated, and it lowers its damage output even further, and does take it really low already. So it's looking a really tough ask for this Yveltal, which has done very well so far throughout this entire tournament.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers here, David. I don't think, even if the Yveltal goes for a Protect, that the Grimmsnarl gets knocked out this turn. I think it's close. I think it's close. I don't know the actual numbers. I'm not very good at counting, unfortunately. But we'll see after this turn. And then, yeah, I mean, it's the Zacian. It can use Behemoth Blade. It can use Sacred Sword. It looks like it's pretty much going to KO this Yveltal and take the game for Giovanni.
It does sure look like it, yeah. I mean, imagine if like that Effect Spore was Sleep instead. Like if there would have been no Reflect had gone up, like all those Spirit Breaks that come out wouldn't have happened. So Antonio maybe needed a little bit of extra luck there to ease one out, or even a Paralysis as well in Grimmsnarl. The occasional full Paralysis would have helped too. But Antonio's letting Giovanni get the KO here with the Behemoth Blade into the Yveltal, and Giovanni goes into like the final round, X and 1.
X&1 indeed, and looking like Giovanni, the only one in contention for getting that top cut finish and going into our top 8. So, really well played set, actually. Feel like Giovanni was largely in control through most of the game. Um, Real shame that we didn't see Sneasel piloted to victory. That would have been a great result to showcase.